Humanity's religions have played an important role throughout history, both in the lives of individuals and in the structure of societies. However, the attainment of global status by any religion is not limited solely to its teachings. It is also closely connected with historical, geographical, and political conditions. In this context, Christianity stands out as a particularly notable example. Many consider Christianity to be the first global religion, yet behind this idea lies a complex historical process and the fact of its spread across a vast geographical area. The emergence of Christianity dates back to the 1st century CE. Originating from Jewish society, this new religious system initially encompassed only the lives of a small group gathered around Jesus Christ. At that time, the Jewish region was under the rule of the Roman Empire, where considerable religious and cultural diversity existed. Early Christians faced numerous challenges: pressure from Roman authorities, suspicions from local Jewish religious leaders, and social marginalization could easily have confined this belief to a purely regional level. However, an important turning point occurred. Christianity did not remain focused solely on the figure of Jesus. It also initiated systematic missionary activities to transmit its message across different regions. After the death of Jesus Christ, his disciples and the leaders of early Christian communities began spreading their message throughout the Greco-Roman world. This was not merely a religious process, but also a cultural integration, as Christian teachings were presented in ways compatible with Hellenistic language and philosophical principles. The global potential of Christianity was largely made possible by the advanced infrastructure of the Roman Empire. Networked roads, ports, and urbanization provided significant advantages for Christian missions. Thanks to these conditions, Christianity spread beyond a single region, reaching from Italy to Mesopotamia and from Egypt to the Iberian Peninsula. Greek, one of the main languages of the Roman Empire, and later Latin, which gained prominence, became important factors that facilitated the transmission of the Christian message among diverse peoples. In its early periods, Christianity was not limited to being merely a religious community. It also developed as a social and cultural phenomenon. Christian communities established mutual support systems in different cities, helped the sick, and achieved unity through social and ethical norms. Such structures created the foundation not only for religious teachings, but also for Christianity to be accepted as a way of life. One of the main reasons Christianity became a global religion was its universalism. Early Christians sought to spread their message not only to the Jewish people, but to all nations. This approach was clearly reflected in the philosophical and theological perspectives of missionaries, such as Paul. Traveling to various cities and regions, Paul adapted his message to different cultures and reached diverse ethnic and social groups. These activities enabled Christianity to move beyond being merely a regional faith and to gain the potential for global expansion. However, an important question arises: was Christianity truly the first global religion? In earlier periods, there were also religions that spread widely across geographical regions. For example, Buddhism had spread from India to China and later throughout Central Asia by the 3rd century BCE. Religious beliefs that emerged during the Hellenistic period and various mystery cults within the Roman Empire also influenced broad territories. Nevertheless, none of these religions achieved the same level of systematic organization, centralization, and long-term global influence as Christianity. By utilizing the political and cultural networks of the Roman Empire, Christianity spread its message for centuries across Europe, Asia, and North Africa. Another interesting aspect is that Christianity's global scale was shaped not only by geographical expansion, but also by its capacity for sustained influence over time. Christianity did not merely spread. It was also adopted and reinforced by various empires, systems of governance, and societies. This characteristic transformed it from a regional or temporary religion into a global phenomenon. One of the individuals who undoubtedly played a major role in the early expansion of Christianity was the Apostle Paul, Paul the Apostle. Paul functioned not only as a transmitter of religious messages, but also as a missionary with strategic thinking. His journeys were mainly directed toward the important centers of the Greco-Roman world: Antioch, Ephesus, Corinth, Athens, and Rome. Paul's approach did not consist merely of delivering a message. Rather, he took into account the social and cultural characteristics of each region in which he worked and preferred to present his ideas in a form that was more appealing and understandable to the local population. For example, in Ephesus, considering the religious practices of people influenced by the Temple of Artemis, he framed the presentation of Christianity in a way that made it more coherent within that context. Another important characteristic of early missionaries was their ability to reach broader audiences through written communication. Paul's letters to the Corinthians, the Romans, and other Christian communities did not merely provide religious advice. They also contained ethical, social, and philosophical content. These writings connected different cities with one another and ensured that the Christian message was received not on a local, but on a global scale. Thus, through letters, communication was maintained among Christian communities living in distant regions, and a shared network of belief was formed. The infrastructure of the Roman Empire played a special role in this spread. The empire's roads, ports, and cities enabled missionaries to travel more quickly and on a larger scale. The military and political stability that existed during the period known as the Pax Romana made it possible for Christian activities to be carried out more freely. Roman roads served not only military and commercial purposes, but also created favorable conditions for the safe and rapid dissemination of Christian messages. Early Christian communities were also distinguished by their creation of social and aid networks. These communities sought to meet both the material and spiritual needs of their members by helping the poor and the sick. Such activities demonstrated Christianity not merely as a religious doctrine, but also as a lifestyle and a system of social values. The sense of unity and mutual support within the community differentiated Christians from other religious groups and made them more attractive. Another example demonstrating Christianity's global impact was the formation of religious communities across various regions of the Roman Empire: Egypt, Syria, Anatolia, Greece, and Italy. These communities were not limited to religious rituals. They also influenced social and cultural environments. By organizing schools, places of worship, hospitals, and public gatherings, they left their mark in every city. Furthermore, early Christian missionaries did not limit themselves to urban centers. By following trade routes, they also traveled to villages and remote regions, sharing the Christian message with wider populations. This approach created the conditions for Christianity to move beyond being merely a regional belief and to become a global religion spread across vast geographical areas. Therefore, when evaluating whether Christianity was the first global religion, it is important to consider not only its geographical spread, but also its social, cultural, and lasting influence. The extensive communication networks of the Roman Empire, the planned journeys of missionaries, and the social activities of Christian communities came together to transform this religion from a regional faith into what would later become a global phenomenon. After the Roman Empire officially recognized Christianity as a legitimate religion, with the Edict of Milan issued in 313 by Constantine the Great, the faith began to spread rapidly and consolidate not only in cities, but also in the remote regions of the empire. The population increasingly gravitated toward Christian teachings, transforming it from a regional belief into a broader imperial phenomenon. Christianity's influence extended across a vast geography: Italy, the Balkans, Anatolia, Egypt, and North Africa, leaving deep and lasting marks. This expansion was accompanied by stronger cultural integration. Local peoples blended their traditions with Christianity, creating new religious and social syntheses. Over time, Christianity's influence extended even beyond the boundaries of Europe. The Coptic and Syriac Christian communities that formed in Egypt, Syria, and Ethiopia were among the most important proofs that the religion had moved beyond the borders of the Roman Empire. The city of Alexandria was known not only as a religious center, but also as a hub for theological and philosophical thought. Scholars and missionaries trained their spread Christian ideas throughout Mesopotamia and across the Mediterranean world. During the period of the Eastern Roman Empire, known as the Byzantine Empire, Christianity continued to expand through both political support and cultural and economic networks. The efforts of Byzantine emperors to strengthen Christian doctrine included policies directed toward the construction of churches and monasteries. These monasteries functioned not only as centers of worship and education, but also played a crucial role in spreading the Christian message in rural communities, along trade routes, and in distant regions. Christianity's strategy of expansion placed it in a distinctive position compared with other religious movements. For example, although Buddhism had spread across wide geographical areas in earlier centuries, its influence was largely centered on teaching and meditation, with more limited engagement in social and political structures. Christianity, by contrast, influenced not only the religious sphere but also social life, creating a more systematic and enduring global network. Moreover, Christian missionaries did not confine their activities to imperial borders. They extended their missions as far as West Africa, Northern Europe, and the islands of the Mediterranean. By translating teachings into local languages, missionaries made the religion more accessible while also contributing to cultural and intellectual exchange. In this way, Christianity brought together different cultures around its message, evolving into a global network. These developments demonstrate that evaluating Christianity's status as a global religion solely through geographical expansion is insufficient. Christianity took deep root in various regions through its social, cultural, political, and intellectual influence, gradually becoming a lasting phenomenon over time. What began through the infrastructure of the Roman Empire later expanded during the Middle Ages through Byzantium and other empires, ultimately shaping Christianity into a global religion. In Western Europe during the Middle Ages, Christianity gained importance not only as a religion but also as a center of political, social, and cultural power. After the collapse of the Roman Empire, Europe fragmented into many small kingdoms. However, Christianity ideologically and spiritually united these diverse societies within a common framework. The institution of the papacy, centralized especially in the city of Rome, began to spread Christian influence systematically throughout Europe. Popes and monasteries played significant roles not only in religious matters, but also in political affairs. By cooperating with rulers and kings, they contributed to the spread of Christian values across vast territories. The monastic movement held particular importance during this period. Monastic centers such as Monte Cassino functioned not only as places of worship and education. They also became sites where Christian teachings were systematized, libraries were established, schools operated, and important translation work was carried out. Monasteries also served as major bases for missionary activity. For example, St. Patrick worked to spread Christianity in Ireland, while St. Boniface did so in Germanic regions. These missionaries were not limited to spreading religious knowledge. They also had a profound impact on literacy, education, and the development of social structures. The development of Christianity was not confined to Europe alone. Missionaries traveled to regions such as Scandinavia, the British Isles, and Eastern Europe, transmitting religious values to different societies. Their activities extended beyond preaching by translating texts into local languages, making religious knowledge more accessible, and integrating into the daily lives of local communities. They achieved broad influence in these areas. Such efforts not only expanded Christianity's geographical boundaries, but also strengthened its capacity for cultural adaptation, elevating it to a global status. Comparisons between Christianity and other global religions present an interesting and extensive topic. For instance, Islam spread rapidly during the 8th to 9th centuries, though its initial expansion was largely connected with political and military conquests. Christianity, by contrast, demonstrated a different approach. Missionary activity, socio-cultural influence, and processes of local adaptation were its primary instruments. Other traditions such as Buddhism and Hinduism often spread more through peaceful means, education, and philosophical schools, yet they were not as strongly linked to imperial infrastructures as Christianity was. These differences show that Christianity's global status cannot be measured solely by geographical expansion. At the core of its success were social, cultural, and intellectual influences, missionary journeys to distant lands, the structured activities of monasteries, and the support of empires. These factors transformed Christianity from a regional belief into a global phenomenon and ensured its continuity. To understand Christianity's global influence more broadly, it should also be noted that monastic and missionary activities were not limited to Europe. They extended into the Mediterranean region, North Africa, the northern parts of the Arabian Peninsula, and even as far as Central Asia. This demonstrates that Christianity was not confined to a single geography. Rather, by establishing its presence among diverse cultures and ethnic groups, it evolved into a universal religion. After the Middle Ages, Christianity did not remain confined to Europe and the Mediterranean region. On the contrary, it began to spread into much wider territories. Especially during the 14th and 15th centuries, alongside Europe's trade expansion, exploration, and maritime voyages, Christianity reached new areas, from the coasts of Africa and islands of the Indian Ocean to the American continent. Portuguese and Spanish explorers traveled together with missionaries, bringing the Christian message to diverse cultures and communities. During this period, missionaries were not limited to religious preaching. They also integrated Christianity into different societies through education, translation activities, and social assistance. One of the key indicators of Christianity's status as a global religion was its adaptability. Missionaries did not simply share a message. They operated using methods suited to local cultures and traditions. For example, in Latin America, instruction was organized in indigenous languages, while in Africa and Asia dialogues were established between Christianity and local religious beliefs. This approach prevented Christianity from remaining a merely regional faith and helped transform it into a global phenomenon. Regarding whether Christianity was the first global religion, historical comparisons show that earlier religions, such as Buddhism, Hinduism, Zoroastrianism, and certain Greco-Roman cults, had also spread across wide geographical areas. However, these religious expansions were either not organized in a centralized manner or did not encompass broad territories in terms of social and political influence. Christianity, by contrast, achieved global religious status both geographically and socio-culturally through imperial support, strategically organized missionary activity, social and cultural integration strategies, and networks of monasteries and schools. Several key factors confirm Christianity's global status. First is the principle of universality. Christian teachings were not limited to a particular ethnic or national group. The concept of a savior for all nations gave the religion a global character. This approach strengthened its philosophical and theological foundations and facilitated its wide dissemination. The second major factor is continuity. Even after the collapse of the Roman Empire, Christianity preserved its existence through monastic institutions and missionary networks. The third factor is cultural integration. Christianity created syntheses with various cultures, adapting to their local characteristics and deeply penetrating social and cultural structures. The fourth important aspect concerns the role of education and written heritage. Letters, monastic libraries, and translation efforts did not merely contribute to Christianity's geographical spread, they also generated a broad intellectual influence. When all these factors are considered together, it is possible to conclude that Christianity may be regarded as the first truly global religion in history. It did not remain merely a religion. It also left deep marks in different regions of the world as a social, cultural, and intellectual force. Christianity's global influence was not limited to the boundaries of its own era. It also influenced other religions in later centuries. For example, the spread of Islam into Central Asia, North Africa, and the coasts of the Indian Ocean, as well as later Protestant missionary movements, benefited in certain ways from this broader historical context. Likewise, the expansion of Western colonialism contributed to extending Christianity's sphere of influence. Nevertheless, the remarkable breadth of Christianity's spread was made possible primarily through missionary movements, monastic activities, and the initiatives of the papacy during the Roman period and the Middle Ages. In the modern era, Christianity has become a phenomenon no longer confined to Europe or the Mediterranean region. Its sphere of influence now encompasses all continents, from North and South America to Africa, Asia, and Australia. This expansion has been made possible through the interaction of Christian missionary activity, colonial policies, and diaspora networks. However, the global character of Christianity is defined not only geographically, but also through its social and cultural impact. For example, Christian teachings have left deep marks on educational systems, concepts of law and ethics, and institutions of social service and charity. Schools, universities, and hospitals were, for long periods, established and administered largely through Christian initiatives. Thus, Christianity represents not only a system based on religious ritual and worship, but also an important social and intellectual force. Regarding the claim that Christianity was the first global religion, historical research indicates that it achieved a global position because of its wide geographical spread, strong socio-cultural influence, and long-term continuity. Other major religions, such as Buddhism, Hinduism, and Islam, have also demonstrated global characteristics in certain respects. However, Christianity stands out as the first religion to combine geographical scale, social influence, and intellectual heritage in such an integrated way. Moreover, Christianity did not remain merely a religious system. It gained worldwide importance as a political and cultural phenomenon. The institution of the papacy, monastic movements, expanding missionary networks, the support of empires, and the combined activities of diaspora communities transformed Christianity from a regional belief into a global religion. Its influence throughout history has not been limited to the number of its adherents. It has also manifested through interactions with other religions and cultures. Christianity has also served as a model for other religious movements. Through global missionary activities and methods of integration, it not only expanded its own worldly influence, but also played a role in shaping the dissemination strategies of other religions. From this perspective, explaining Christianity solely through geographical expansion is insufficient. Its social, cultural, and intellectual impacts provide strong grounds for characterizing it as the first global religion. The networks formed throughout history, missionary mobility, and adaptive potential transformed Christianity from a temporary local belief into a phenomenon embraced on a global scale. Consequently, considering its consistent and integrative influence across different regions, cultural environments, and historical periods, Christianity may be evaluated as the first global religion in history.